I think I love this. I'm the loudest one in the room. And I have no shame. I got to not be in front of the speaker if you're going to have this. I have no shame in being so passionate about our students that I will advocate and lobby and fight like hell for them. So if I take that title from you, FERC, I welcome it. So the story of the community college, I want to tell you because first of all, there's a long story of Erie County Community College that happened long before I got here, that we as a society, we need to capture that and garner that. So I know Judy Lynch happens to write books, and maybe she could be persuaded to try to capture that history and story because it needs to be told. And I can't tell you all of that story, right? Many of you in this room were part of those various fights. Dr. Ferrati's work was crucial in the first attempt at the community college, and then also the failed iterations of colleges. I would argue those were as crucial to getting us where we are today as even those attempts. But let me tell you a very personal how I became familiar with the movement for Erie County to get a community college. So I don't mean to be technical on you, but I'm a peer reviewer. So I go around to other colleges and determine whether they meet federal standards for quality. And so as part of that organization, if you've heard of Middle States Commission on Higher Education, it's their sister institution, Higher Learning Commission, which goes from Ohio to Colorado. So I was at their annual conference, and I don't remember where it was, but I'm always the loud guy who says, let's not be pretentious and hide behind our titles and behind our research. Let's just be real people, because frankly, that's what our students need. So I'm the guy that at every conference, I'm like, who's getting a beer with me? So the conference ended, I get everybody, we gather around, and I vividly remember this because it started a dream for me. We were sitting around a fire pit, and I'm with a couple people I knew and a bunch of people I didn't know, and we had just read inside one of our trade rags, we read something about the failed attempt to get the community college here. And we all started dreaming and said, how cool would it be to start a brand new community college? How cool would that be to build a college that doesn't come with all the barriers and histories and flaws that our colleges came with, that don't have the traditions we have to fight against, that don't have the political influence from something that happened 3 generations ago and nobody knows why, but nobody changes anything in higher ed. So that's really what turned me on. And then here's the inner secret. Dr. Boyd, who's the president of a college in Illinois, this became kind of our bonding moment. And we've always talked about our dream team. So when we interact with someone, we're like, are they dream team or not? And dream team means, are they incredibly positive? Are they future focused? And will they fight like hell for students? That's the criterion. If you want to be on the dream team, that's it. The flip of that's true. If you want to whine and moan and complain about why we can't do this and blah, 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 that's great. You're not a dream team member because you're not going to change the world by focusing on what's wrong. We need to focus on what can be better. So that was my personal introduction. And then I'll share a little more personal here. So I've applied for 1 college presidency in my entire career. I was not ready to be a college president, didn't want to be a college president. On a personal level, I had gone through a divorce. I had custody, I had the legal address. We didn't have custody. I have a great relationship with my ex-wife. The kids lived with me, and my son was a sophomore in high school when the job got posted. And my president of the institution had been saying, hey, you're ready, you should start looking. And I'm like, nah, not yet. I want to get Juno through high school. And then at that point, we'll figure things out. In my industry, I'm really young for my level. I mean, I am old, but I'm not that old. Most community college presidents are, it's the end of their career role. And so I was kind of breaking the mold, and I always have because baby boomers have retired in front of me. I'm not talented. I just happen to be where baby boomers retired. And when you're the only person left with experience, you're all of a sudden given responsibility, which then in turn is experience, which makes you more ready for the next level of experience. But so Andrew, my oldest, just started a law job out in Phoenix, and Juno at the time, who was a sophomore in high school, we were all sitting around, and if you have teenagers, it was a rare moment where they actually wanted to talk to me. So it was 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm tired, I need to go to bed, but both kids are talking. Right? And one of them bluntly said, well, Dad, are you going to be a college president? And I said, yeah, at some point. I said, at that time I was 45, 46. I said, what do you do after you're president? Like, why am I rushing? Like, what for? And I was like, I'll figure it out. Once you get through high school, then maybe, And then later on in that conversation, they started talking about dream jobs. And they went through what their dream jobs would be and so forth. And they said, Dad, what's your dream job? And I said, well, I'd love to work at Wrigley Field, but I can do that in retirement. My real dream job actually just got posted out in Erie, PA. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, dude, I can start a brand new college. And they've been around, I've been an administrator their whole life, so they've heard me complain about how unions hide behind contracts and don't want to serve students. They've heard me complain about how administrators are so ego-focused that they don't care, they're not listening to their employees, they're not listening to students. They've heard all my frustrations with the system. And I remember Juno turns to me just bluntly, and he's like, well, Dad, why don't you just apply? And it blew my mind. I was like, wait, what? I went to bed. About a week later, I got another rare opportunity. Juno came up and asked something. I said, hey, can we talk? I said, are you serious about that? He's like, yeah, just do it. Why not? I'm like, but where will you, like, he's like, I'll live with Mom. I'm like, well, she's not in the district. He goes, well, I'd like to finish here, but if I have to transfer high schools, I'll transfer high schools. We'll make it work. All the positivity I've always hoped from a kid gave me. So I reflected on it, and I had a conversation with my close group of peers, including my president, and said, look, I don't want to send this signal that I'm on the market and I'm ready to leave. But this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I applied, and somehow I could blame Chair D. Nicola. He was the fool that said yes. But while we're saying that, I do want to share a funny story about EC3. So I don't know exactly why, but they ran me through the ringer for this job. I did more interviews for this job than I've done all my other jobs combined. And I get a call from the search firm, and they said, we need a half-an-hour presentation on your vision for a community college in Erie County. And I was like, a half an hour to talk about a comprehensive community college? I can't do it, especially if I have to say Erie County Community College, because that takes 45 seconds each time. So I stipulated in the beginning of that presentation, I said, I'm not suggesting this is the final one, but for the sake of this presentation, I'm going to save myself a lot of mouthful and a lot of time. I'm going to refer to Erie County Community College as EC3. You may later decide to be E-Tri-C or ECCC or whatever you may decide it be, but for now, I'm going to call it EC3, and it stuck. So that's how EC3 came, because I wanted to focus on the ideas more than that. So that's kind of my history to it. I'm at the age, Ferky, I had to put the readers on to see where the thing is. So there we are, that button. Okay, whoops, I skipped a slide. My apologies. It's skipping too. Let's figure out why. All right, the other one is just about me. Here's the reality. So many of you heard this story before, but I'll tell it over and over. I grew up in a neighborhood where I suspect my teachers had to have had college degrees, but nobody else I knew had a college degree. Nobody went to college, right? You either worked at the state school or one of the factories, or you did service jobs. Rural, central Illinois. I'm a farm kid, right? We learned work hard, all that, but the reality was there weren't a lot of jobs to work hard in my hometown. When I grew up, the town had 16,000. I say it's a lot like Corey. It's now down to 10,000 and dwindling. There are just no jobs, so there's no future for towns that don't have jobs. But I was dating a girl, and she was going to the local community college, and I liked girls. And she said, you should come to college. And I was like, oh, cool. You want me to come to college? I'll come to college with you. Now, I was always an academically gifted student. Not something I chose, not something I worked hard at. I didn't choose to be 6'2". I didn't choose to have a high analytical intelligence. I also didn't choose to be a really poor listener, but I am. All right? So I reckon these are not things that I worked hard for. These things that just came to me naturally. And teachers were always good to me. They forgave me when I used the wrong tool. They forgave me when I had a temper. They forgave me when I fought back. They didn't extend that same grace to all of my friends, who the only difference was I happened to have this analytical intelligence. So I've never thought I'm better than anyone. I thought I'm different. We're all different. Anyhow, so I followed her to school. I'm going to jump to the end of the story, then come back to it. The end of the story was she dumped me 3 weeks in. Best mistake I ever made, because my little tiny world from Lincoln, Illinois went like this, where diversity in Lincoln, Illinois was you were either Catholic or you were Methodist. Went to, holy crap, people think differently. People eat different foods. People fold their clothes different ways. My world was blown. I had no clue. I had no idea how big the world was. And I fell in love. I absolutely fell in love with the learning experience. changed my career. My mentor, who became my best friend, has since passed, literally became, Jerry Dellinger alone literally changed my life. He put me under his wing. I remember one time he's like, hey, you're not connecting with anyone. Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? Why aren't you doing that? And I'm like, well, I don't know. He's like, I'm not asking. I'm telling you, go do this. And literally, every time I got paused, and he continued that same sort of tutelage all the way through my adjunct teaching, through my full-time teaching, into my administration. That's where he didn't like it anymore, because he was that classic faculty member who resisted anything administration says. But he was a huge mentor to me. Now let me go back and how to college. So I'll tell you, here's what Erie County Community College and every community college in America does. We teach students confidence. That's it. Yeah, you're going to learn stuff in the classroom, but more importantly, you're going to learn to believe in yourself, to work harder, figure it out, ask questions, do all those things. One of the things that I hate about the model of higher education is students don't know how to college. Let me go down that path. What does how to college look like? I'll tell you my personal story. So I go to the community college and I owed $600 or so. I don't remember exactly what it was, but that's unattainable. We were probably lower middle class by that point in my life. $600 was not, I didn't know anybody that had $600 that I could borrow from. So I did like we did for everything else. When I needed my car, I got my argument ready. I scheduled a meeting with Rod at the local bank, and I made my case about why I'm a good investment and how you can count on me for paying it back. For those of you that are really young, that's actually how banking used to work. It was a personal relationship, and you just had to convince the banker to say, yes, I believe in you. Nowadays, it's all AI is doing it for you. So I sit there with Rod. I went there with my mom on a Saturday, and Mom doesn't know anything, right? Mom has no idea I pretty much had to fill out the FAFSA. First time in my life, I realized how poor my parents were. When I actually put my dad's salary down, I went, oh, wow, we really are poor. You aren't just not wanting me to get that new pair of jeans. We can't afford it. So I had to fill out the FAFSA. I figured that out because there's directions, right? But I remember I sit with Rod, and I'm like, Rod, I want to take out a student loan, and I want it to be in this amount, and here's how I'm going to pay it back, and here's my career path, and how I'm going to have money, and blah, blah, blah. And I remember Rod sitting there. Now, Rod's kind of a family friend, because when you're in a town of 15,000, you know everyone, and you see Rod's kids at the local ball game, or you see him at the store or whatever. And Rod's smirking at me the whole time. And I'm like, what's going on, dude? And finally, I get my presentation done, and I'm really happy, and he goes, you know you don't come to the bank for that, right? And I'm like, what? He's like, go to campus and go to the financial aid office. I'm like, okay, what's financial aid? I didn't know how to college. You know how most colleges handle that? Figure it out. You're in college now, figure it out. How the hell are you going to figure it out when you've never been exposed to it? How is that a realistic expectation? But that's what my industry does. That's how my industry teaches our customers. They say, figure it out. You're in college now. So my whole career, I've been working hard to break down those barriers and say, stop. If you expect a student to have the outcomes while they're coming into our organization that are the same as when they leave the organization, we do not need the organization. If they can demonstrate college competency, they don't need college. So I have really worked to break down those barriers my whole career, and I'm kind of known for that. So I'm a disruptor if you have a business training. I've been a disruptor in higher education, both in my own institutions and at a regional and national level. Or if you're in education, art historian Amy said, Dr. Gray, I think you're a provocateur. And I said, that's just a nice way of saying I'm an ass, isn't it? It's because I've always challenged things, and I always will. If it's not about student success, I don't care. I don't care what that community member thinks. I don't care what the state's telling me. If it's not going to help that student reach success, I'm not putting my energy towards it. That's the only thing I'm going to focus on. So that's me in a nutshell. Now let's fast forward. And I want to give you a brief timeline of the community college because it's important. And there's a lot more besides this story. But in 2020, county government approved the plan to submit to the state that they wanted to have a community college. What that really meant was they said, hey, we're going to commit, we're going to pony up. So our model in community college is pretty much across America. It's also true here in the state. 1/3 is subsidized by the state. 1/3 is subsidized by in the local government here. In Illinois, it's taxes. In California, it's K-12 districts. So it changes where you go. But here, it's the local unit. And our local unit was the county government. When they did that, that started the legal process towards the legal march towards a community college. There was a whole other campaign that went on for decades before that. So I do not want to miss that. That's critical. And many of you in this room were leaders in that. And so we can't not tell that part of the story. But that's not my story to tell. I don't know it, and I'm still learning more and more and more every time I hear, and all the nuances and deals and so forth. It's just fascinating. But in 2020, the county government approved it. And then at that point, they appointed the board, which Chair DiNicola was one of the first 9 founding board members. Scott, you were on the county council and made that happen and took a political beating for it. So thank you for doing the right thing for student success. I'm sorry it didn't work out for you politically, but to hell with them. Future generations will understand what you did. So then in 2020, and then they submitted an application to the Pennsylvania Department of Education that was eventually approved sometime, I would say March or so of 2021. Later than that, we have the exact date. And then what they did is they hired some consultants. They hired an interim president, Dr. Gay, an amazing education professional out of Philadelphia. This college would not have existed without her. Dr. Polonio was a consultant they hired in, Dr. Church from Ohio. So there were a number of really good people who immediately came together and said, how do we start up the college? In one of my interviews in May or June of 2021, I don't know if it was Ron or one of the other search committee members, something about starting classes on September. And I went, oh. So I talked after, if you work with the search firm always calls a candidate after an interview, says how to go, what questions you have. And I said, hey, I just want to clarify, they're talking September next year, right? He's like, yeah, I'm sure that's what they meant. And he called me back about a half an hour later, he goes, Chris, I got to tell you, they mean September this year. And I was like, what? So I started July 14th, Bastille Day, 2021, and through the good work of the tiny but mighty staff and consultants, the doors officially opened on September 1st, 2021, and we welcomed in around 100 students or so. I still don't know how in the hell that happened. That was the craziest time of my professional career. So at that point, our offices were in the 3rd floor of the chamber, on the 3rd floor with the chamber and I'm blanking on the name of the 12th and State, right down the road. And I remember we were outgrowing it, and I'm so focused on getting classes started, we had 2 offices and like 12 employees. Now, luckily, the chamber was coming out of COVID, so we could use their cubicles, but I was filling their cubicles up quickly. And I'm finding like, getting new space for offices is not about student success, so I don't care. But I had to do it. And I remember, blank on his name, Zapta. Help me out, locals. Who owns that building? Zaffris, thank you, Sean. Pete happened to walk in the building, and I said, hey, Pete, I'm sorry to lean on you. Do you know anywhere that would have turnkey space office that I could use? Like, we're growing too quickly. I just need offices just to have people to work. And he's like, well, I'm not using the 2nd floor. Just take over the 2nd floor. So to no cost to the community college, we took over the 2nd floor. I was so proud that we'd solved the problem, right? Those days where we had, all we did every day, we'd get there about 7. There was a mighty core of about 7 of us. We'd meet 2 to 3 times a day. What are the problems? What are the priorities? Solve it, go. Solve it, go. Solve it, go. That was a big win for me. We move in, about a week and a half later, I just happened to walk by 2 employees talking, and I remember they were complaining how disgusting the bathrooms were and saying, this is gross. Why do we have to work here? These bathrooms haven't been cleaned. And I realized, oh yeah, I didn't get anybody to clean it. And I thought, it's not about student success, I don't care. So a kind of a hidden secret, for the first 3-4 months of that, every Monday night after work, that Monday night it happened, I waited till everybody left, I ran to the Walmart over up by Buffalo Road, grabbed a bunch of cleaning supplies, and I started cleaning bathrooms. And that's kind of my story. When I hire people that report to me, if you're not willing to clean a bathroom and jump in and solve that problem, this isn't the right place for you. Because this is what our students need, and this is what I expect. So now let me fast forward. So much has happened in that time, right? So that was 4 years ago. We just started our 4th our 5th official year. Then we had 3 programs that the consultants had built: a business, a transfer, and a computer. We're now up to 17 programs, which I'll show here shortly, and we built all of those over time. One of the things that really kind of helped us put us on the map is when we took over our West campus, and so that's the old Villa Maria. That gave us a sense of identity, okay? And so that happened somewhere in 2022 or so, and then we held our first commencement. And again, that loud, pushy voice that Ferky talks about, I happened to run into Governor Shapiro at PA Society, and I said, hey, Josh, I'm Chris. I'm that new community college in Erie, and we need you to be our first commencement speaker because we need to tell the state how much the community college matters here in Erie. And Governor Shapiro said, count me in. That also helped put us on the map. We got really put on the map a year later when we didn't solicit this one, when First Lady Dr. Jill Biden wanted to be our commencement speaker. This year, the 3rd commencement speaker, the students were stuck. They got me. Because you are not topping. Taylor Swift was engaged. We tried. We didn't really, but we joked that Taylor Swift, because we couldn't announce Dr. Biden, we had to keep it all under wraps until it was all signed off officially. But I had to stop my committee that was playing it. And so the rumor mill, we knew the rumor mill swirling. So Renee, that runs the college, she runs my office and she really runs the college. I told her to plant the seed that it's really Taylor Swift. And so people really bought into that. And I was like, wow, you're gullible. We can't afford Taylor Swift, I can tell you that. So that happened. And then our first graduate. So our first graduation was 37 students. At our last one, we graduated over 130. Right? Those students have already gone on and successfully graduated from Penn State and Barron, and many of them through the PASHE institutions. We've got students at Gannon, we've got students at Mercyhurst, and more importantly, we have a lot of students out in the workforce. I recently toured ISM, which is a manufacturing plant over on 8th Street, and when I walked in, one of our very first students was there. And I was like, hey, how's it going, man? And he told me this story. He's like, yeah, so I worked operations, right? He was on the factory line, essentially. He said, but I got the IT degree, so then I came to the owners and asked if I could start to work in the computers, and it pays a lot more. And that company moved him up. And then the owner happened to see how excited I was to see one of our graduates of the workforce, and literally all of a sudden 4 or 5 other people come out. So our students who would graduate our manufacturing program were filling those jobs right there. So if you want to really know the story of the community college, that's the story of the community colleges. That's what we do. Oh, I had it backwards. See, we went timeline first, so I wasn't wrong. See, I was joking before. One of my side hobbies, how I de-stress, is I like to play with TikTok and PowerPoint and make fancy PowerPoints. So this is what happens when I can't sleep at 3 in the morning. So I get really cool designs. But let's talk about it. So what makes us different? I've alluded to some of those, but here's the practical things that make us different. The traditional model of college: pack up your car sometime in August, go away, you'll come back at Thanksgiving, you'll come back at Christmas, but you're going to live on campus, you're going to eat there, you're going to live in a dorm. That's not the reality for so many students. That's easy if you come from a middle-class family and your parents did it, and they've been saving up, or they have grandparents who are at the point where they can kick in. That wasn't happening in my family. I grew up on food stamps in a trailer park. Now, by the time I got to college, my parents had moved. They had lived the American dream. They did the American dream. They broke the cycle of poverty. But nowhere near where they could afford to send my brother and I to college. And here's a harsh reality. There's no student loan out there that's going to pay for college by itself. It pays for a community college by itself, but it's not going to pay for any 4-year. It just doesn't happen. So then our students get in taking on private loans, or they owe it to the college, and then they're strapped. And I talk to people all the time who are my age. Actually, I served in a board meeting, and I don't know her age. I would guess she's in her 60s. Just celebrated that she made her last student loan payment. When I get to be within 2 or 3 years of retirement, I don't want to be paying off student loans, and I don't want future generations to have to. So part of what we do differently, we know from research teaches us that adult learners, and the primary student at the community college is an adult learner. The average age at every community college across America is somewhere around 27 to 28. It's true here in Erie. We get a lot of students who are fresh out of high school. If you come to my campus Monday through Thursday for a 9 a.m. class, it's going to look like a lot of other colleges do. But when you look at my online, my evening, my weekend, my only Tuesday afternoon classes, because they can take Tuesday afternoon off work and come take a class, you're going to see rooms that look just like this one. right? That's the reality of a community college. So since we know that they learn better, not because faculty have always taught in semesters and want to teach in semesters, when we know students learn better in 8 weeks, compressed, focused attention, we're going to build a damn system to do that. So we don't operate off of the traditional fall and spring. We have 5 8-week terms that begin throughout. So whenever you say, I'm ready for college, if you get laid off in September 1, the typical college design, you're sitting around. If college is going to be your path, you're sitting around for a year waiting for that cycle. You get laid off September 1 and you want to come back and retool, we can get you in class in October. And we'll work with you all through September, getting your basic remediation skills up, right? We don't do, I didn't put it up here, but we don't do developmental courses. Did you know in America, our system is so doggone flawed? We get people all the way through high school and give them all these accolades and all these graduation, then they go to college and take a placement exam, and we tell over half of them they're not ready for college writing. We tell 3/4 of them they're not ready for college math. Not their fault, folks, that's ours. We built the doggone system. Here's how big of a disruptor I am. At my last institution, I took the placement test. I didn't expect to place in math because I haven't done basic algebra or calculus in a long time. Now, I supervise a $30 million budget, so I know numbers and I know spatial awareness, but I wasn't going to be great about that. What I didn't expect is I didn't place, I'm a published scholar. I did not place into college level writing at my last institution. Screw you, you snotty English folks. I took them on. I walked right in there and I said, let's fight. When's the last time you all published something? Here are my credentials. If these peer-reviewed journals are accepting my work, why are you not? And how snobby are you? How much do you hate our students? I didn't go that far. But that's where, when Ferky talks about my passion, absolutely right. I took that fight on. And by the way, they've now changed their standards. If you want to teach Harvard-ready students, go teach at Harvard. You're not going to get hired there, but go teach there. If you want to teach the rest of America, adjust the system to meet them where they are. Meet the student where they are and help them get where they need to be. Don't expect them to be there from the beginning. So we are incredibly student-focused. We have success coaches in every class. So if I'm teaching a class and you're not turning an assignment in, you may be scared to say that, oh, because Professor Gray's got all the power. But when there's Joe Blow in the class, hey, I'm Chris. I'm a success coach. If you got any questions, like if you're not sure about the class or you're not sure about something you get from some office, or you're not sure how to do something, just call me. Right? Those success coaches, if you don't log on to that online class in a couple of days, they're picking up the phone saying, hey, what's going on? So we are wrapping around those services to make sure students can be successful. Now, not all will. Some don't want to. That's on them. But if they fail, it's not going to be because we didn't do our part. That's when I say EC3 is built different. Those are the things I'm talking about. And it works. Later on, I'm going to show you some of the results, and I'll show you why that works. These are our degrees. So I want you to think about our degrees in 2 major areas, transfer and career in tech. As we fully mature, our transfer degrees will account for probably about 60 to 70% of our enrollment. All I talk about in the public is workforce, workforce, workforce. You know why? 2 things. A, because even transfer students need workforce skills. The #1 reason students identify for going to college is to get a better job. So why am I in there trying to teach them high-level academic research skills to publish and create new knowledge in the world? Let the liberal arts do that. Let the R1s do that. That's what they're designed for. I'm essentially an extension of the teacher's college model, prepare people for the jobs in their region. I'm a local level of that, so we're going to prepare it. So I expect even our transfer students, even me, an old theater teacher, I have to be able to help my student understand why the skills I'm teaching you, why the knowledge I'm teaching you is going to be useful to you in the workforce. The second reason is much more pragmatic. There's a large political divide in America over higher education right now. Workforce happens to be the one that both sides agree on. So when I'm talking publicly, workforce, 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 it's because the 2 traditional parties, no one attacks me on that. If I talk liberal arts, our general studies degree used to be called liberal arts. Change it. I didn't change anything about the curriculum. Do not call it liberal arts, because if I'm stuck in a stupid fight that somebody who doesn't know anything about higher education or student success wants to argue about what should and shouldn't be taught, when it's mandated by the state and I don't have a choice about what I'm teaching, I'm not focused on student success, so change the damn name. Actually had a call from a local elected official. Why in the hell are you teaching music classes? Well, because the state requires it. I'm out of it. I'm not going to go into philosophical reasons and try to convince this person why we should teach liberal arts skills. They're not going to be convinced. They don't want that. So let's not waste our time or the students' time. All right, and then the other two, the applied. So anytime you see applied in a degree, that means we're not designed to take you on for further college. We're designed to go right, take those skills right in the workforce. So a welding degree would be considered an applied degree. A nursing degree, all of those would be considered applied degrees. Right? Now, that doesn't mean they don't go on. If we have any retired nurses in here, you probably started with your RN, but then transitioned to a BSN and likely an MSN. So it's not exclusive that applied never goes on. In fact, a lot of our applied degrees are built assuming you will also transfer, but they're designed, they have less general education and much more focused skill-based learning in that particular discipline. And then the last one you'll see, which is just a smaller version of that, is a certificate. So a certificate can be 15 to 30 credit hours, so 1 to 2 semesters really focused. So if you're working in a local manufacturing plant and they're going to bring in a new piece of equipment and they need someone who goes and gets fluid training, we can give you we can take just focused classes. So you're not going to have to worry power, electronics, motors, all the other things that would typically go in millwright training. We focus just on that. So that's the big model. And then here's where we are now. We started with 3. We now have 17 programs in these different pathway clusters. We literally have something for everyone. Now, do we have everything? No. Will we? No. Do I get hit in the community once a week? Oh, you should have a program in this. Great. Let's do the research. Let's understand how many jobs are open right now, how many jobs are going to be open every year for the next 10 years, and what do they pay? I don't teach early childhood education. I know we need them in this county. I cannot morally justify making someone pay to come to college to make less than service workers in fast food. I'm really struggling with that. Now, I'm getting pulled because I understand we need good childcare so folks can actually go to work. So we may get there at some point, but I'm looking for a partnership where somebody's going to step up and find a funding model that we're not asking these students to pay out of their pocket to work a less than livable wage job. Now, if they choose to do that, that's great. That's fine. I have no problem if somebody chooses to do that. But I don't want to take somebody through a program, think they're going to have a great career, and realize they're going to be eking by their whole life if that's their primary source of income. So you'll see our transfer, again, this is misleading because that one on the top, your top left, will be 50 to 70% of enrollment as we're fully matured. But we have lots of these other programs. We have criminal justice. Our huge program, our applied business degree, huge. Entrepreneurial thinking, right? Lots of enrollment there. And we're developing our health sciences. So we currently have a partnership with UPMC. We do Surge Tech because they had surgeons threatening to leave. So they came to me back in 21 and said, oh my God, we need Surge Techs. And I'm looking at Boo Haggerty, and I was like, Boo, I appreciate it, man. I don't even have office space right now. You want me to build an operating suite and go hire faculty to teach that? I'm like, the answer is yes. I got to figure out how. And we sat down and collaborated. Here's the how. Well, we found out there were barriers. We have to have regional accreditation and specialized accreditation. Well, the regional accreditation, I can't handle that timeline. I applied, in December we applied, and we'll have official in March of 27, it will be official, but that timeline's out of my hand. So I said, Boo, here's the barriers. So we partner with University of Pittsburgh. So we do the general education, then they come into our space and do the training, and we do right down the road at Hammett is where they're getting their clinical experiences. That's doing college differently. So we've expanded that. We're now, through a great partnership through county government and the 3 healthcare systems. We are now, if you haven't been to the Villa Maria recently, holy cow, it is chaotic right now. It looks much different. The first floor no longer looks like Villa Maria, and all they've done is put up drywall. But we are the cafeteria. If you know that space, the cafeteria is gutted and framed, and the Sparkies are in there wiring it. We're building an allied health lab. I think we're going to call it Health Sciences something. We just landed on that name, but we're building that. And when that gets finished here in this calendar year, then we'll expand it and we'll do training in sonography and licensed practical nursing. So we're expanding our healthcare, and there's lots more coming with that. But we're going to grow. We're going to grow at the right pace, because I get concerned rapid growth can lead to lower quality, and we do not need nor want that. And then you'll see we have heavy manufacturing. Our manufacturing campus is the former skills center next to the Voc-Tech High School. So you'll see we actually just opened classes out there officially. The regional college, which I know to many of you was the enemy back in the day, we've actually very collaborative relationship. They've realized this is not their space. This is not where their strength is. Their strength is the rural. So they actually donated over $1 million worth of CNC equipment that we're operating from. So that's how strong of a partnership it is. Now, we still compete for the same students, but we try to tiptoe around that. They have an early childhood education program. I'm trying to say, Susie, their president, how do we partner? How can we put that program on our campus? Because that still serves students. I don't give a crap whose logo gets credit. What does it matter for students? Okay? So more than I can talk and tell my story, I want to share with you our student stories. Anybody know the trick on audio? She's coming. It's in presentation mode, so I'm not sure. Nope, computer's got audio. We'll go back and start. It's a quick 5-minute video. If not, we can jump on YouTube and find this video. Is that easier? Give me the next slide. I'll go on the next slide while you figure that out. Let me look at it. Oh, now I'm going to need that slide because that's our data. All right, I'm going to start talking about our key performance indicators while we get the technology figured out. So our KPIs for you in the business world, here's what matter. What's our enrollment? How successful are students? Are we keeping those students? Are they graduating and getting job placement? And our director of IR, Matt, what's the fifth I'm missing? Transfer. So those are the 5 things. If you want to know how successful EC3 is, at a core level, that's what it is. Let me just tell you this. Enrollment is at we have about 800 students enrolled right now. I think we'll hit 1,000 students this year. So there's no doubt, before I die, hopefully, we will be the largest education provider in Northwest Pennsylvania. My last institution was a county community college. We had similar populations. We have 13,000 students at that college. We're not going to get that here. The poverty here in the city of Erie and the rural poverty are such barriers and distractors. We shouldn't. Education is not the right answer for them. We've got to get stable food. We've got to get stable housing. We've got to work on transportation because we're transportation driven there. So I'm going to share after this video, I'll actually share some of the data, but they're pretty impressive. I'll give you the short story. Because we built it right, that's the part I care about. The results show up. We are outperforming almost every other community college in America. Now, my data set is small and I don't have the longitudinal data, but when you build it about and around students, you'll get the results you're looking for.
I heard about EC3 for the first time when I was in high school. And I went there and I applied, and the sign-up was just so easy. And then, yeah, that's how I got into EC3 first.
I was a part of the original inaugural class when it first opened in 2021. Next semester will hopefully be my last. It's a journey that I am very proud to have taken. As I have grown, the school has also grown.
I was very intrigued that the efforts to have a community college in Erie had taken so many years. Early on, I was thinking about how can I really be supportive, and so I decided to become a student and enroll.
Born and raised in Erie, tried college first semester, wasn't a fan, so ended up just working in the field, welding. Found out about EC3's welding program and decided to go there.
To have more and more people from the Erie community take advantage of the resources like the community college that are available to them. It's definitely very gratifying to see that.
When I started, my counselor, she was really helpful, Miss Andrea. Any questions? I would literally just be asking her like 5 questions to her email every time. And Miss Marie, I love the library. She's really funny.
I enjoy being in the classroom. It's been very interesting in that setting because of the wide range of the students. You know, they go everything from the one just out of high school to the one who's married, to kids changing careers. It's a very positive atmosphere.
The community college just gives a smaller, more family-like atmosphere. You get to know everybody, and it's given me knowledge and problem-solving skills, and it was awesome.
My teachers, my professors have all been so helpful and so personable and sympathetic.
They're ready to help anytime.
I think it's going to put out a lot more workers in Erie specifically, and the job connection here is crazy.
I was looking for a cost-effective way to pursue an education, especially because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I thought that community college was a good place to start.
It's a really nice space to come and explore before you make like a final big decision.
You can be as flexible and as malleable, so to speak, as you can be in trying to figure out what it is exactly you want to pursue after school.
As I was going through my classes, I really felt myself gravitate towards environmental topics. I would have never found that without EC3.
I really wanted to do something combined, like tech and business, and then I found data analytics. I really love it. I can't wait to start when I'm done.
Having a place where you can do that and afford it, I don't know, it changes the game.
I've been taking classes one at a time. I don't want to overdo it. Maybe someday I'll go through a graduation ceremony. I don't know, maybe my friends will come. I have my own little cheering section. This is an opportunity for enrichment for myself, and I'm enjoying that part. I would encourage anyone, because you never stop learning. It's enlivening, it's current, it's energy, it's being with these younger people who are so impressive. Just the fact that they've chosen to be there and they're sticking with it. They, realize they're doing something. Just being a part of this is bigger than myself, yet good. That's the effect of a community college.
I think that this graduation is going to mean more to me than when I graduate with my bachelor's, because it led me to where I'm going. And without this place, I wouldn't even think about having a bachelor's degree. So it's like, I'm probably going to cry a lot at graduation.
I'm excited about finishing because I didn't think I would be able to go through the whole process, and the people are just lovely.
It feels really good to see and look back on what all I've done there and the accomplishments that I've achieved from there.
Even after I graduate, I will always keep EC3 as a special place in my heart.
And honestly, talk to any of our 800 students, almost every single one of them has a story that's just as powerful. Remember when I said we teach confidence? That's what you saw from those graduates. The confidence to take on the world, to recognize the world may be stacked against you, and you have to be the hardest working person in the room, both. So quickly, here's our enrollment. So this, when I say we have 800 students, so this is 800 students so far. We haven't, I don't think summer's included in that yet. So it's just unbelievable the growth you've seen. The trajectory there is crazy. We were actually trying to slow enrollment down, because if we keep growing at this pace, we're going to run into some challenges. And so we're trying to figure out that we really funnel students into the right programs and the right jobs, and we're not just throwing programs out just because we can get more enrollment. We want the right enrollment. But it's not just enrollment, it's not the only success story. Here's where and this is where I get nerdy and proud. This is like when I go to academic conferences, if I cared more about it, EC3 could receive all sorts of national accolades. If I thought, if it was about student success, submitting yourself for awards, we do it, but it's not, so we don't do it. But when people hear our results, they're like, I get calls still once a month or so from somebody all around and say, hey, I'd love to talk to you. What's your recruiting plan look like? How are you keeping your success rate so high? What are you doing differently, right? Because my whole industry is struggling with this across the nation. And so if you look here, enrollment through the roof. Every time we set a target, we blow it out of the water, right? So we keep going back and redoing the model. can't continue forever, but it may continue for the foreseeable future. But it's now course success. So course success is when a student enrolls in a class, do they get an A, B, or a C? Did they successfully complete the course? Not just did they show up, and not just did they enroll, not just did they stay enrolled, but did we as an institution help them get where they need to be? 79% is the cohort average across America. We're above that. When you put our poverty rates, if we dug deeper into this data, and you looked at our poverty rates and our college-educated parents' rates and put that over that, this number is phenomenal. Most urban institutions that have similar problems, poverty, and not a lot of folks with college degrees, struggle getting anywhere near the national average because those life circumstances impact students' ability. We're seeing the same thing throughout it. We're consistently above that with course success, and we're getting better and better and better because we were under it one semester. I said, not acceptable. I don't care how poor our kids are. I don't care that they don't have role models at home. What can we do to make them be more successful, right? When we take the onus, instead of saying, well, work harder. Work harder. If that was the answer, they would have figured it out themselves. And then when we get over here in the top right, we look at our retention and completion. So the average retention and completion is 56% based off of our cohort. We're at 78%. So what that means is, are they coming back? If they registered in the fall, do they come back in the spring? If they registered last fall, do they come back this fall? Yeah, without a doubt they are. And that's 78%. You could say, but what about the 22%? Well, you know what? When they got rejected from Mercyhurst or Penn West, and we give them a year of confidence and success and a good academic record, and they reapply and transfer over, that's success. It doesn't show. When you hear all the national talk about a funding model, community colleges are generally opposed to looking at completion as a model because I'm not designed for completion, right? I'm not designed that you're going to come spend 4 years with me and walk away with a baccalaureate degree. I'm designed that when you get laid off and need a quick retooling, you can do that. When you're unsure of yourself, you can take classes. I share this story. Dan Ream, dear friend of mine from Washington, Illinois. He's a bit of a snob. He's like one of the AP graders, if you know what AP is. He's really like, oh, look how smart I am. And there's a political bias in the story. He was sharing with me, I'm not a very political person, but he was sharing with me, he was worked up at the time about how all these universities are trying to do is indoctrinate people into liberal thoughts. And I said, well, Dan, you know, I've worked in higher ed at that point 15, 20 years, and I can't even get them to read a syllabus. So if I had the ability to get them to think something I wanted to, I'd be doing it. But the reality is, I really don't see it. I'm not suggesting it doesn't happen, but I work in that, and I work around faculty a lot, and I don't see it. And he says, I mean at a real college. Thanks, Dan. No, let me tell you about Dan. So Dan and Laura have kids that are identical ages to my kids. 6.5-year gap, really strange. The first one was the accident in my case. The second one was the accident in their case. But both sets became very friends. Wilbur and, his name's Will, I call him Wilbur. Will and Juno became very good friends, and Kate and Andrew were competitive in everything. They were in arts and theater and music and all that together. They were always head to head with it. But Kate is brilliant because she's Dan's daughter. I love Kate dearly. But Kate is going to go to a renowned school somewhere in Louisville for music. Doesn't get in. So she settles and goes to a state college. She goes there and she has a mental health episode. Has to be hospitalized, has to withdraw from school. Well, she happened to come to the community college because she didn't want to lose that full year. She wanted to get some credits. And you know what happened? She fell in love with it. She became the biggest champion for that college. So I don't have to worry about the Dan Reams because the Kate Reams will tell that story. And then she did go on successfully and get a bachelor's degree, and she's working in music instrument repair somewhere now. So those are kind of the stories of what community colleges are really about. And the bottom one is placement and transfer rates. So this is a little trickier for community colleges to measure. In March of 2027, they will backdate our accreditation to November of 2024. At that point, we'll be iPads, which is, I'll be able to track students. If they went to me, where they go, and then I'll be able to tell you really clearly how many of our students are going to what other colleges and universities. Until then, the best way I can do it is just do out surveys and so forth. I'm telling you, there's not a traditional student that's going to pick up the phone and answer that question. So we don't have great data on that. We also have limited data on our graduate, so our folks that have the associate applied degrees that went right in the workforce, we do send out about 6 to 9 months after they graduate. We try to engage them. We ask them things like, did we prepare you well? Are you working? Are you working in your field? Here's some really cool things. 80% of our graduates are making above a family sustainable wage for a family of two. That means they're making above $45,500 after just 2 years of training. 80%. Over half of our students are on employee-based insurance. I don't have I have a hypothesis here because I don't have a lot of data to support it. I suspect many of them were on public insurance prior to that. So when we give them access to training and give them access to jobs, it moves all of society forward. Right? So we're seeing really positive results in those areas as well. So the short of the story is we're being very successful. That doesn't mean we're great, doesn't mean we don't have flaws, but we've had a lot of success. I want to talk briefly, because I get asked this all the time, accreditation, accreditation, accreditation. So we now have an official relationship with Middle States. Our application is actually sitting at the United States Department of Education right now. We're expecting an email back this week to tell us what further information they need, whether to determine when we can start giving out federal student aid, Title IV funds, Pell Grant primarily. We will not do student loans at EC3. Student loans are traps for students. If you live in the poverty level, which a vast majority of our students will, you'll get a Pell Grant, which is roughly $7,000. That will cover all of your costs and expenses at EC3 for a year. Now, on top of that, my failed model says, oh, well, we're going to let you take out a student loan, and then maybe you can get yourself a new car, make transportation easier. Really? And then they get to be out of college, and their job prospect is $40,000, and they owe all these student loans. And you know what happens? They don't pay them. Or they're so far behind financially, they can't take a risk on a job they really want. They got to settle for a job they can get. So we're not going to do them here. Now, we're going to try to find good banks, private banks, because there's the segment of society that I'm most worried about. I'm not worried about those that are on the poverty level. I'm worried about, I think the United Way calls them, blank in the name. They've got a cute little acronym. Same, but not theirs, but same concept. Those folks, like, I was not eligible for a Pell Grant when I went to college because my combined parental income at the time was like $50,000. So in 1993, I wasn't eligible. Okay, I was eligible for student loans once I knew what those were, but I wasn't eligible. But my parents had no money. They weren't paying for college. That's the people I worry about. I don't worry about my kids now. I'm in a position where I can pay for college. So very soon, hopefully January of this year, we'll start to have federal financial aid and be distributing that. So we're free tuition right now. Here's the big secret to this. Everyone says, how are you doing free tuition? I'm building the model right. What my industry does, you get funding, you run out and spend that funding. Oh, let's hire this person, let's hire that, let's add this, let's do this, let's do this. I'm just no stop. Because that enrollment, here's what colleges do. You see an increase in enrollment 15%, so you go increase your staff 15%. Well, 3 years later, you see a decrease in enrollment 20%. You know what colleges don't do? Decrease their staff 20%. Then they just complain, well, the state doesn't support us like they should. The state hasn't supported us like they should my whole life. I'm not going to sit there and wait for it. By the way, our local folks, both at the county and state level, have been huge advocates for us. So when I make broad statements, I don't mean when I talk to Dan Laughlin, when I talk to our representatives and I say, here's what we need, they are working their butts off down in Harrisburg to make sure the college is successful. We wouldn't be here if it weren't the support of county government, both the county executive and county council. It takes all of them. Our funding, we get roughly $4 million from the state, roughly $4 million from the county. Right? When we start collecting student tuition, it will be another $3 or $4 million. So we'll be about a $12 million business once we start collecting it. Right now, we're about $10.5, $11 million business. So my last slide, I'm not coming to you without an ask. Our future students need you in a couple different ways, and they're easy ones. Just be a champion. Share the story. People still don't know what a comprehensive community college is, no matter what we do to try to get the message out, because people have never seen one. I'm not worried about that in 2 generations. In 2 generations, 1 out of every 3 to 4 high school graduates from every school in Erie County will naturally enroll at EC3. We're not there yet. It will happen. It happens across the nation everywhere. So be a champion for that. Send us students. If you know folks who are curious or interested, all you got to do is get in contact, and my staff will walk you through that. They're designed not to say figure it out. They're designed to say, what do you want? What are you thinking about? And they'll listen, and they'll guide, and they'll help. We'll do that. And the last is, those in between, we've got a foundation. Ron chairs our foundation. If you're in a position, if you've benefited from society to help you and you're in a position where you can help, we would absolutely welcome that. You're going to be the first time I'm going to say this publicly. We will be rolling out a campaign in the next year or so where we're going to come to you and ask, can you help future generations of students? And with that, there's going to be a lot of opportunities. You can endow scholarships, you can have naming rights, you can give, and I don't care what the amount is. You give whatever you're comfortable and what you are capable of giving, right? We're going to do that. Sean's our director, our external director who oversees our foundation. So if any of you are in a position now where you'd like to have that conversation, we're more than willing to have that conversation. But we are establishing that foundation because there are a couple things. We have a barrier grant already. So when a student gets a flat tire, it changes their life, right? You and I get a flat tire, it's a nuisance. We call the tow truck. I call the tow truck because I have tow insurance. It's easier than me crawling into the car and trying to figure it out. Well, most of my students don't have that. All right, even if I had to do it myself, I could get there, I could pop the tire off, take it to the tire shop. It's going to be $120. You need a new tire. You always need a new tire. They never fix tires anymore. I'm an old farm boy. I'm just going to plug it. But they don't fix them because it's some insurance risk now. I'll tell you what. Okay, $120. Here, I'll just use my credit card. Or I'll use my debit card. Well, wait, what if I wasn't, what if payday's coming up and I'm strapped on cash? Okay, put on my credit card. Okay, what if I didn't have a credit card? Hey, Sean, can I borrow $120? I'm really embarrassed, but can I borrow $120? My students don't know anybody. They don't have debit card. Banks won't give them one. Nobody's going to give them a credit card. And they don't know anybody in their life that can loan them $120. So we've established a fund where we will literally say, bring us proof of receipt. We'll reimburse you that one time. Because if not, that student's going to drop out of class. They're going to go pick up an extra shift. They're going to leave the car on the side of the road that's going to get ticketed and then towed. And that small inconvenience just disrupts their life. So when I come to you ask, it's for that. I'm also going to ask, there are those folks like me who I can take a student loan. But if you're in a position where you can endow a scholarship, I will likely endow a scholarship in my mother's name here at the college. Because my mom was always the champion for student learning. So I want that to live on long after I'm dead and nobody knows who the hell Alberta Gray is. There's opportunities for all of us to help others. And so I know many of you gave on Erie Gives Day. We appreciate that. You'll see a year from now, we're going to have a huge community celebration. It's our 5-year birthday. So we invite you all out for that. So there's always opportunity to champion the students. And so I'm going to wrap up the formal portion of that because I'm sure you all want to know things that I didn't ask. And I believe there are the mechanisms you're going to write on. Are they writing them down or are they just call them? Raise your hand if you have a question.
Yeah, and we'll come with the mic.
Great. No questions. I'll ask one. Can the Cubs climb out of this and win the division? I think so. I'm a Cubs fan. I don't give up. It also means I'm really dumb. Those two things may go hand in hand. Thank you.
I just wanted to ask, I'm Shelby from the PA Career Link. I'm a work-based learning coordinator over there. I just wanted to see if you guys had any internship programming that's built into the curriculum.
Yeah, if you're using the technical definition, no. And I'll tell you why, because I think it's all malarkey. Now, some industries we have to do it, but the state comes in and says, oh, if you do this registered apprenticeship, blah, 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 blah. When I talk to employers, they don't need that full regimen. They just need some basic skills. So I expect every one of our classes to have some sort of work-based learning experience. Now, in my career and tech side, you better get their butts into where they're going to be. If they say they want to be a CNC operator, get them on a manufacturing floor right now before they spend a year training and then walk into a job and go, oh my God, I don't want this. So we believe we should connect every bit of that to that. I'm even challenging my people teaching English. Right? Here's how dumb my industry is. Our whole way we teach English in college is designed for you to do academic publishing. I do this, I'm going to do it in this room. How many of you in your entire life have published an academic journal and or book? 3, 4, great. How many of you done that in the last 6 months? Berkey, you're such a nerd. Year? 2 years? 5 years? How many of you published outside of your dissertations? Few of you. And we're in the room where this is probably the most likely that you're going to do that. But you know how we teach every single student? You have to learn that style of writing.
Sorry, it's not true.
How is it not true?
Because we do teach people to write sentences. You would be quite surprised, even in a four-year college or whatever, that they cannot write a sentence, many of them. And if you're getting students who can write sentences, paragraphs, I don't know where you're finding them.
We're getting them. We're building them.
I'm really serious.
Yeah.
I taught college composition for 34 years, and trust me, every semester, the pain was there.
Yeah.
So are you getting students who can write paragraphs right off the bat?
No, but we're getting them there because we're designing our system that way. The challenge is we're stuck by the state that we have to teach so I know, and I'm not, so I don't know our curriculum that deeply, but I've challenged them, don't start with the heavy academic research. Composition structures have way gotten too focused on critical thinking. I think right where you're at is where we need basic writing, right? When we talk to employers, no one's writing well. Even people coming out of graduate programs, we're seeing the same results, which is frustrating because they're passing the classes, so. No, we're not at all. In fact, it's probably worse. If you look at where our students are coming from, most of them are living in poverty, and we know there's a direct correlation between socioeconomic status and academic skill. So no, but our success rates are really high. We've embedded multiple coaches in those classes. And the moment we identify a student struggles, we're giving them that one-on-one. How do we get them? Do we get them there? No. If you're writing, and a lot of our students is English as a second language. That's even more challenging, right? So.
You talked about Pell Grants. My understanding is that the current administration wants to either eliminate them or drastically reduce them. So are you planning for that possibility?
So can you give me a little bit more on what you mean on are you talking the Trump administration?
Right. I mean, I've heard that Pell Grants are very much on the chopping block.
So my job is to tiptoe every political question I can, because we will serve whoever is elected, including President Trump. The reality is it's not going away. You can talk tough, but when you go out and understand what taking Pell Grants away would mean to every single person who's got to get elected every 2 years and every senator who's got to get elected 6, it ain't going to happen. So we were actually able to lobby, in part, not just us, the whole community college system. The draft of the Pell Grant would have been devastating to community colleges. We finally got, I'll tell you, in here, I know Senator Fetterman and Senator McCormick both clearly understood that. And they went back and pushed the bill creator to change that. I don't think it's ever going to go away. I'm really not going to, if Pell Grants go away, higher education, as we know in the United States, is over.
Yeah.
It's gone. Not totally gone. Harvard makes more in one day on the interest off their endowment than the entire state of Pennsylvania funds all of its colleges and universities. I'm not sure those numbers are accurate, but I mean, it's ridiculous what they make. I think they literally make some millions of dollars every day just on the interest. They don't care about Pell Grant. But every state college, every community college, most private liberal arts, gone day one. So I'm honestly not too worried about the current administration. You know, if you get through all the malarkey about the anti-DEI efforts, if you go and look, and if you're really bored, look at the February 14th letter, then more importantly, look at the FAQ that came out of it. We had to change a couple of wording and languages. We haven't changed what we've done. And I'm not going to. Now, I'm not going to flaunt it and try to take on the Trump administration, because every institution that's done that has lost. So I'm not going to flaunt it. I don't want that attention. If it's not about student success, I'm not doing it. Engaging in that silly rhetoric, not about student success. So I'm not too concerned about it. I am concerned broader about the model of higher education, but the outsiders are not wrong. Our model is silly. That 15, 20% increase, decrease, why should we just say the state should keep funding that? Why shouldn't we say, why do you need the same level staff when you had twice the amount of students as you do now? Like, I think that's a fair and reasonable question. I feel responsible to you all and to myself as a taxpayer that we should answer that. Most higher ed administrators don't do it. Traditional faculty, I sat in a meeting one time, and I walked in with Kate, who's an amazing instructor, and she was teaching a course, and she's like, I only have 4 students. It's the best experience I've ever had. All classes should only have 4 students. I'm like, oh, cool. So I'd love to actually put our research skills to that and say, well, let's look at what data show, right? Is this a one-off? Is it an outlier? Well, she gets up in the faculty thing, and she gets up there and spills this same thing, because she's the one that, if you worked in higher ed, she's the one that wants to always hear herself talk. There's always at least one, right? So she gets up and do that. And I said, so I answered the same way. I said, Kate, I'd love to do that. And then if we found that that was true, I'd support it, but I'd have to build a business model to make that happen. And she stands by and says, Dr. Gray, we're higher education. We're not a business. And I'd had it that day. It was a long day. And I finally said, Kate, that may be true, but you know what? I need the damn paycheck next Friday. And half the faculty erupted. So I think that was a turning point in my career. I'm not going to beat around the bush. They are our customers. That doesn't mean I'm lowering academic standards. I'm trying to protect and shield faculty from the business side of it. But faculty, you work here. I need you to understand, I can't. No one's coming up with money. So there is a business component to it. EC3 is built on that. If you look at our financial shape, we get a CFI from Middle States. I don't know what it stands for. It's a metric. We're probably the best in the state of Pennsylvania right now. Now, part of that's misleading because we're sitting on dollars for the reconstruction that just hadn't been paid yet. Once those are out, that number will drop, but we're still going to always be strong as long as I'm at the helm, because I'm not going to put in a position where one COVID or one malware and I have to fire the 70 employees that I have because I didn't run a good business. And that's what you're seeing when colleges close. It's because administrators did not do their jobs. Not always. But when they want to spend, and not stand up and say, no, a 10% increase is unreasonable. No, we don't need to expand and open that campus. We need to get better utilization on this one. Administrators don't want to do business for too long because most college administrators came out of faculty, right? And they don't, and I never cared about the business model until I had to. I didn't even understand the business model when I taught. It wasn't anywhere near me. So there's a big difference in how we do it. Other colleges do it. Hack, my dear friend Ski, the president of Hack, he's now in the real estate business. Because they built up Hack so much, they own so much property. Mainly what he does now is trying to sell off other property. Does that have anything to do with student success? I don't want to do it. What else?
You mentioned your funding was half.
Sir, wait for the mic. Thank you so much.
You mentioned that half your funding comes from the state and half from the county. And I was surprised it was so high as to the county share. For example, I'm on the school board in the city, and the city taxpayers provide about 25% of the funding for the school district. And of course, when we assess school taxes, we get all the money. Your funding, you're part of the county tax, and of course, that budget's approved by council. How does the funding work? Who sets the pace between the state and the county on increases and such? Is there a pattern to that?
So there is at the state level. Let me answer the county one first because it's not complex. The county one is simply the county executive proposes it in a budget, county council either accepts it, rejects it, or counters, however that process works. So when we were started, that funding was $3.75 million. When County Executive Davis came in, he increased it to $4 million, and we've not asked for an increase since then. And I don't expect to anytime soon because frankly, my per student funding from my local, I'm the way highest in the state because my students are still so small. As we grow, we may need to have that conversation, but right now is not the right time. On the state level, it's a lot more complicated. So the state level, the way that process works is if the funding for all community colleges in Pennsylvania is at or above what it was last year, I get my last year's operating budget the same. So that's $3.1 million roughly. If it's above last year, the state allocation, if the Senate and House and Governor all sign off on it, let's say there's a 5% increase to community colleges, I get a prorated portion of that based off my students compared to all the other community college enrollees. Separately, I get ongoing recurring capital from the state that pays half of my leases, so my property leases, my computer leases, it pays half of that. There's another pot of money, there's a one-time capital that we can access. So the windows we're putting in, all the new windows at Villa, half of those are paid for out of that pocket because we just put in for it. So next year we're putting in for a new roof over part of our building. We expect that we'll get that. So there's so the state's a little bit harder to say, but right now I think if you looked at my annual budget, I think it's about 3.8 or 3.9, but that number can fluctuate each year based off that one time, because in that one time request, it can be a cash project, or I can say I want to build a new building and I want the state to pay half of my payments for the next 20 years.
Is the state funding predicated on the county sustaining a certain level of contribution? Does that figure into the state's calculation?
It does not. It's totally separate. There's some legalese around that. That is not. We've not fully matured that here. So typically, what I should have is a contract with the county that outlines what that is. We don't have that. It's not a big deal because we have the support, but at some point we will probably work to do that. There are differing opinions on that. I know in the formation, some view it as it's a hard commitment. It's always got to be, X base plus percent and not. The reality is the law is not as clear on that. The county is on the hook to support the college. There's no doubt about that. But there's not clear law on the rest of that. And there are some counties that are fighting that. Some counties are saying we don't want to continue that level of investment. We want to take it back. And then they're going through mediation and eventually the courts to resolve that. So we don't have that problem here. We have full support from the entire county government. The county executive has actually given above and beyond that increase. We have a $2 million grant came out of his allocation through the ARP that was, of course, approved by county council, but he spearheaded that. He also had us apply for a $500,000 grant to do a construction trades program. So we have full support within the county executive office as it sits, and we have full support from the collective county council. I think there's some individual members who wave, but everyone understands what we're doing. Like the argument that what existed before we came, it's gone. People get what we do and like, oh, we need this as a community. So I'm not weighing into any politics, but I'll tell you, when people really push me, hey, what about this county executive race? What about these county council seats? Do you care? No. I care on a personal level. The district I'm going to live in, I care very much because they're my elected official. But from a college perspective, we're confident that we have the support of the necessary folks. So, and it would be dumb for me to take a stance. Even if one candidate were running anti-community college, I'm not wading in because if that candidate gets elected, I'm screwed. Because I need that person to put in their budget, the budget request. I don't want to be a hockey puck between council and executive office. It doesn't benefit my students, so I don't want to do it. Same at the state level.
Can you speak to your dual enrollment program for high school students? Like, do you have any data as far as the number that are taking advantage of that opportunity, the number, like I've heard some stories.
$1 million.
So I'm not looking at that. I'm looking how many students.
I have a grant right now for $1 million. So we can do dual credit, dual degree, anywhere we want for the next 2 years. It will be totally free. The grant from the state will pay my faculty. It will pay student tuition, everything. So yeah, so here's what we do. We do a lot with dual enrollment. And if you're a higher ed person and I'm not going to stipulate what language we use because every college calls it differently. We have a full dual degree with Erie High. So actually the valedictorian and salutatorian from Erie High School actually technically graduated our program with their associate's transfer degree in the morning and then went and got their high school diploma totally free. So those students are bused to our campus their junior and senior year in the mornings now, every morning, and they take a full college grad. So that's the full blown. From that, students from there can also take a smorgasbord. I don't want to do the whole program because I want to be in band, and that conflicts with band. They can come take a class here or a class there as part of that. That's one model. In Corey, see, we have our high ed partner. In Corey, we've actually teamed up with their allied health program. We offer medical terminology in the high school with that. We also, through this grant, just paired up with IU5 and 10 of the 11 rural districts. We're going to expand the Regional Choice Initiative, which is a program where they bus folks into the Skills Center next to the Voc Tech High School, and they can take classes. So we are doing a ton with that, and I know that's one of the things I'm going back to the list and saying, what are we doing, and does this fit? Because we need to expand that. I've got $1 million I've got to expend by the end of next year. So Let's spend it. And I'll be honest, it's an uphill battle because Gannon, which has become a great partner, and I have the deepest respect for Walter, has really clawed into that. And so people think that that's the only model. And then there's a bit of a snobbery. That, look, I say this and people go, I can't believe you said that out loud. I understand lots of people think community college is the armpit of higher ed. I don't care what you think, because I can tell you what my students are doing. I know that the last cohort of people with baccalaureate degree, over half of them had community college credit. So you can think what you want to think, you snob. I don't care, because I know what we're doing for our students. I know what the community college did for me. I don't really care what other people think. But I recognize that that lives out there. And then a lot of parents want their best for their child. I get it. I have a stepdaughter who pains me. We're investing $28,000 out of pocket every year. Dumbest investment ever. Dumbest. When she changes her major, I'm going to say, ha, told you so. Because you're going to change your major 87%. 87% changed their major in the first year, but she's locked into a 4+1 master's degree where she's going to be a criminologist. Wait till she becomes a flutist. I don't know what the heck she's going to do, but stop this silliness. So yeah, it pains me, the cost of colleges. And then she joined the honors college, which I think is even dumber. Honors college means you're going to work harder for the same amount of money and get tiny little benefits, but your ego is going to feel better. But I tell you what, I've taught honors classes. I love them because I can ride those students. I can push them. Those are the kids that I can teach high-level critical thinking academic, and that's fun. It's easy teaching those kids. It's hard teaching the kid who can't put together a thesis. They can't think through logically. Like, that's tough, but that's the reality of our workforce needs. So. I actually have a meeting coming up with, I'm blanking on her name, the new superintendent. Gibbs. I have a meeting coming up with Dr. Gibbs to kind of talk through lots of the opportunities, because we need to be doing better. But one thing about EC3 I learned is not yet. Like, lots of good ideas, that's a great idea, but not yet. Right now, I just need to get somewhere where I have classes. I just need to hire a welding instructor. I mean, the priorities have been challenging. And so a lot of not yets from 2 years ago are now. It's now time to do that. So now dual credit is really going to be our focus, where we're going to really expand that.
I really don't have a question, but I have a statement. I graduated from St. Vincent's School of Nursing, so I was a working registered nurse. Swore I was never going back to school. 10 years later, realized I need to go back to school. Went back to community colleges in California and got all of my prerequisites redone through community college.
Like you needed to redo them. This is the silliness that higher ed is.
Yes. But
sorry. I'm sorry my industry has treated you like that.
But community college is how I got through all of that without having to register and join a program and declare a degree. I got through till I could declare a degree in exactly what I wanted and could pinpoint. I got all of those basics done through community college.
Awesome.
Later in life, after my bachelor's and 2 master's degrees, I wanted to go back to school. I love education. And I used community college because they had senior programs where I could go in, take a class or 2, and learn something new about whatever. But community colleges, I think, are magnificent.
Well, thank you. We're going to Sean's going to grab you afterwards, because we're actually getting ready to do a campaign. One of the things as we're growing, we need to tell that story. That 8% of all community college enrollees across the nation already hold a baccalaureate degree. Not an uncommon story. Lots of us go back and take it. So we want to tell that story and break down that the ignorance and the fear of what is a community college, right? We need to I'd love to be able to share your story with folks and say there's lots of folks in the community that community college has impacted their life. And we have a lot of CEOs in town that started at community colleges. We have a lot of high-level folks that have benefited from. The problem is Erie just didn't know what the community college was. Largely, they still don't. And that's okay. We'll get there. So.
If there are no more questions.
Uh-oh, Scott's got one.
Oh, no.
Scott never asks easy ones. I'm going to get my notebook out because it's going to be like a 10-parter with he's going to want the citations, and he's going to want the data, the raw data. And
actually, I have statements also. Are you hearing me good here? You know, I've brought up adult education many times, and I know you're madly thinking about it. But I'd like to see more life lesson type education, student and child development, like you talk about training students to be students, and I'd like to see parents trained to be parents, and you know, child development and promotion. I went to a nice presentation here last week. A lady from Erie Together talked about that, and part of her thing was manners. I'd like to see manners. There's a few people in the room that could use that. I'm talking to the mic, yeah. So anyhow, I just wanted to bring that up. I don't expect an answer right now, but also I did talk about transportation when I was in office, and I think it's very important to this city. It's kind of laid out strangely, and we need more convenient transportation on an east-west basis, and that would help with your problem with student transportation. But it all fell on deaf ears, as you know. So anyhow, that's it.
Yeah. So let me address that.
That wasn't too bad for you.
No,
I know
it wasn't.
you're thinking about the adult education.
But I mean, and so here's the hard answer. I don't have a funding model for that adult ed, the stuff you're talking. So my model on that would be our non-credit. So here's how we do non-credit. What's my cost to do it? So if I were to teach a class in manners, I'm just using that as an example, I'd say, okay, what's my cost for the instructor, the material, right? My direct costs I can directly associate with that. How many students do I realistically think I'm going to get enrolled? So I've got to figure out a model. Whatever my cost is, the minimum I charge is the cost plus a 40% markup, because that covers the rental of the space, the electricity, all the overhead. That's as close to a business as I get. But I don't use taxpayer dollars to support that, right? And here's why. There's no model. And now if the county came forward and said, no, we're going to allocate this and we expect you to do as part of that, then I would absolutely. But right now, the model really at the state level is all geared off of the credit hour and the full-time equivalency. So that's the reality. So we're not opposed to that. We've done a few of those. We just had, we've got a great non-credit CNA program, but it's costly. It's $1,800 out of pocket. Right? It's very costly. So here's how we do things differently. What I want to do is find that who's teaching that manner class. How can I partner? Can I share space with them? Can I take their costs down to give away my space, which doesn't really cost me directly, but then I'm not delving in, because here's the problem. If you worked in higher ed, you know this. There's probably a manners class that was taught at your college or university that nobody knows who or why, but it's always been taught, and we have to always teach it because we've always taught it, even though it loses money. And then when we need money for more English instructors or upgraded dorms because students aren't coming to antiquated dorms anymore, there's no resources. For me, at my last institution, we had a board member who cared very much about sustainability issues. So we spent over $750,000 running a sustainability center. I'm not saying sustainability is not important. It's not the mission of the community college. We don't do business well. So that's what I'm looking for. So I was sharing here career resources for our students. We need to help them interview skills, build resumes, find jobs. Instead of going out and hiring a full-time career services person, I partnered with a local company who provides that service. And here's the deal. It doesn't cost me a penny. I give that person an office and let them use my empty classrooms at night so they can run their cohort. Then I'm serving the students without making the investment. That's what I'm looking for. So Scott, what I'm looking for, what organization whose mission is to do family value training, and I'm not sure that's the right word or whatever, how can I partner with them? Because I'm an education specialist, primarily the credit side. How can we find those partners? That's the future. If we're going to survive, that's what I would argue. I think you're going to see probably in Pennsylvania, you'll see 10 colleges close in the next 5 years. I think nationwide, you're going to see 500 in the next 2 decades. And it sucks, but it needs to happen. I'll tell you one challenge when I served on Shapiro's transition team, and I've worked closely with a lot of his cabinet level appointees, including the Deputy Secretary of Ed, handles higher ed, and his chief of policy. One thing that I think the other systems I've worked in did better is we knew our place in community colleges. PASHE, the teachers' colleges, knew their place. The R1s knew their place. Here, nobody knows their place, so they're all fighting for enrollment. So I don't mean to knock Allegheny College, but Allegheny College was built as a liberal arts institution who's now doing manufacturing training. That blows my mind. Like, their faculty have no idea if it's a true, and I don't know, I shouldn't say globally, but let me do it, because I'm hyperbolic in my language. You probably picked that up a little bit. If I ever give you a number, you got to, if it's not a real technical number, you have to divide it by 2 and subtract a few. And that, so if I say 25 people called me about this, that really means 2. All right. But anyhow, so I can't imagine a truly liberal arts trained and liberal arts passionate faculty member wants anything to do with teaching someone how to be successful in a manufacturing plant, or gets it, or that they've ever even been in one. Now, I'm not saying there's a great president down there. He may be changing that culture. Woo-wee, that's an uphill battle I don't want to take on with faculty. So, but your point's well taken. It's finding out where's our place and what do we do? And how do we find that right balance? Because community colleges try to be the end all for everyone. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. My last institution, I walked in, my president challenged me with finding $2.5 million savings in the budget. I got rid of our counseling department. When I looked at the data, are we counselors? No, we're teachers. Why am I paying counselors on faculty contracts making 6 figures? When I look at the data, they're basically running a private counseling thing for our students. So the students weren't paying for the counseling sessions, when there were 16 organizations in that community who all had free counseling for the students. So it was hard to do because I knew I was disrupting the lives of these 8 or 9 people. But we got rid of counseling. And then I partnered with NAMI to provide ongoing group on our campus. All it would cost me a room. And then I brought in, we had to keep one as an intervention. Because if you have a student that's having a crisis, you need someone trained in how to talk them out of that crisis. Same thing with healthcare. I'm not ever going to have, my students aren't going to get access to healthcare on my campus. I'm an education institution. If we find that's such a barrier and a need, I'll do it. I just tore out a cafeteria at Villa Maria because I'm not in the food business. But I can call a lot of food trucks who will park right outside. Right? Now we put vending machines, so we're making sure we meet the needs, but I think this is the problem. Community colleges have for too long tried to solve every issue out there for their students. It's not us. I fought my student affairs faculty. They desperately want to have a clothing bank and a food bank. No. There are thousands of organizations that have food banks. Partner with one of them. We don't need to try to do every social job there is. We need to focus on education. So now, if there's not a partner and it's such a barrier that's going to impact, then we may have to step up, but we're going to do it begrudgingly. Because here's the problem. So a food bank, if you don't know what that is, we always think we need canned goods, so if students are hungry, they can get food. Well, here's what inevitably happens. I don't mean to be too political, but I hate bureaucracy. Government operates more inefficient than anything I've ever seen. Here's how it happens in most campuses. Oh, we just need a small office that we're going to turn into food pantry. Well, now we have to invest money in the shelving and so forth. Well, then we're going to outgrow that. So now we need to undo all that work and redo it. And by the way, now I need this staff person. I need he or her to spend at least 2 full days having that open and taking stock and inventory and all that. So this good idea that we need to solve hunger now is costing you a ton of money. And does it have anything directly to do with student success? Not directly. If that student's hungry, they're not going to learn. But if that student breaks their arm, nobody expects a community college to set it and why am I expected to do all these other things? So when I talk about doing college differently, that's what I'm talking about. So Scott, that's where I think it's going to be a struggle. So what you're describing, I would argue, is not our forte. It doesn't mean we can't partner with someone, and I don't know what that organization is. We have a great conversation going with Judge he runs the youth. Yes, we have a great conversation going with him because the same interest. We have these folks who are trying to turn their lives around. What can we do to help with that? And so we just haven't figured out the answer, but we're getting there.
Have the when you were working at
For the mic.
oh, sorry. Is it on? Okay, yeah. During the time when the governor was putting his people together initially, it seemed like it was very tough to figure out how many kids are going alone on their themselves, and it was difficult to figure out how many are going to be continuing that way. And we don't really have the capacity to find out where they're going and what they're going to do, and so it kind of robs us of our possibilities. Is it getting any better on that? And I think it was, sort of what you've been talking about, boss, because you've been thinking about it a long time. Anyway, just wanted to grab that.
So I wonder, Ron, if you're talking.
Did we say the same thing all over again just now?
Yeah. Are you talking about the enrollment cliff of traditional high school students?
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so if you've heard about the enrollment cliff, if you basically look, I think last year was the peak of number of students graduating from high school, and it drops drastically. And when we hit the COVID, because COVID, we stopped having kids in America. Not stopped, but it drops again. And so if your model is built off of that traditional, now again, for us, it's not a big of a deal. We have so many backfill here. Like the reason you saw, at first our average age was in its 40s. Well, that's because there was a backlog of adult learners who wanted to come back when we opened. So the other challenge is states don't talk to each other and high schools don't talk to colleges. There was a push in Indiana when I worked in an institution there that we wanted to give a student a tracking number that we could then track their education journey throughout. It doesn't need to be done at the state level. It needs to be done at the national level. Or global level even, because as Furky knows, he works strongly with the immigrant community. We don't recognize foreign credentials here, which is silly. So there are a lot of problems in our industry. I can't solve that one. I'm going to get the community college established, and I'm going to solve the community college system in Pennsylvania. Then maybe I'll take on all of higher ed, and then banking and healthcare. Watch out, because I'm coming at you. Mental health care first.
Does the state do an annual audit every year on what it is that you're offering, what students are taking, how much money is going to support it?
So no, the short answer is no. The state of Pennsylvania has shirked their responsibility on enforcing their own rules and said you individual colleges have to hire an independent auditor that will do both a financial audit and an audit of our compliance with Chapter 35, which is the law that establishes community colleges. So we report data, but really we report it at the very high levels, just overall total enrollments. Occasionally we will get questions from legislators wanting to know, so we do keep the data broken down, but in a normal report, Matt, correct me, I don't believe we submit by program unless it's a special request. So like we in our budget cycle, it's been cut, we've heard, we've asked for special funding for first responders. So we would then report how many EMTs, how many firefighters, how many police we're training, but you can't fund them at your normal level because that is so costly, kick in the money state. So there used to be that mechanism, it fell off, and Pennsylvania is an incredibly deregulated state in the community college world, which I'm thankful for. When I was in the Illinois system, the community college board, oh my Lord, I had to make these stupid reports. I'd have like 3 full-time staff people just to fill out all the reports that nobody read when it got to Springfield, our version of Harrisburg. But I'd have employees who are rule followers like, oh, we got to do this, we got to do this. I'm like, there are no police there. Like, if we're out of compliance, they're going to say, hey, you're out of compliance, get back in compliance. And I'll go, okay. And then next year I'll forget. And then they'll say, hey, weren't you supposed to fix that? I'm like, oh, you're right. I need to get on that. And then finally, I'll get a call from the director and say, hey, this is a real issue. And I'm like, okay, I'll fix it 4 years later. But we built our system. Oh, we got to do this. We got to do this. We got to do this. We got to follow, blah, blah, blah. It's like, it's not about student success. Why are we spending so much time on that junk? I'm not saying I don't follow any rules.
Any more questions? Any more statements?
Well, thank you all for coming. Happy to share. If you have other organizations you'd like, we can condense this a lot shorter. I've got staff that can go out and share. We need to continue to get the message of community college out. So I appreciate you coming. Sean and I will stick around. We also have Matt and Carolyn. We have other staff folks here. We're happy if you have any questions or want to know anything specific. Sean, Matt, and Carolyn, Reeves, and Sean, kind of so you all know. We can answer. And then I have foundation board members here, Tim and Ron, and I think that's it. So they can answer about the foundation if you have anything. But thank you all for coming out, and thank you for making this happen. I can't believe that I get to be a part of this. Like a lot of people, I get recruited a lot for presidencies because college presidents are leaving. Until the board fires me, I think you're all stuck with me because this is really stinking cool. Like, we get to do this, and they even pay me to do this. So it's pretty stinking cool. And when you hear those student stories, like my proudest moment is graduation. People don't even really know me. I'm just the pumpkin, the orange pumpkin, but they want pictures with me because it's changing their life so much. That's the proudest. Graduation, it literally took me an hour and a half after graduation. My family was waiting for me to go to lunch, and I'm like, nope, students need me, students need me, students need me. So it's really, it's the honor of my career to get to do this. And thank you all for the fighting for so doggone long, not just for us and not just for our current students, but for generations of students to come. That wouldn't have happened without all of your advocacy. So I'm deeply, deeply thankful for that. So thank you all very much.